Hi YouTube, Darth here. Today I'm going to be starting a new series of weapon reviews called simply Yes or No. You'll see why here in a second. Today I'll be reviewing the AR160, the newest assault rifle added in the Naval Strike expansion pack. Chances are that a number of you have already used it or unlocked it. So today's big question is, should you use the AR160? Yes or no? Yes, and here's why. The AR160 is the new king of mid-range. It has a very predictable recoil. Its time to kill is competitive with other assault rifles in this category. It has the second best first shot recoil multiplier, tied with the Scar H. The rifle is in the top tier for bullet muzzle velocity. Some things that detract from its performance. The spread increase is the third worst. The vertical recoil is tied for the worst assault rifle in the game, again with the Scar H. At 700 rounds per minute, it's going to lose to every close quarters weapon in the game. But in its favor, all of these detractions can be countered. When the weapon was first announced a few weeks ago, I really wasn't sure where it was going to fit. Its real-life counterpart, the Beretta AR160, delivers 700 rounds per minute and chambers the NATO standard 5.56 round. It seemed at the time that the weapon would get lost between the M416 and the L85 at 750 rounds per minute and the CZ805 at 700 rounds per minute. I honestly didn't know where it was going to find its own identity. The real-life counterpart is also capable of chambering different rounds, so I was wondering if we were going to see something like the ACWR from Battlefield 3 with a very unusual damage model. Ultimately, what we got was a carbon copy of the Scar H with an increased bullet velocity, increased rounds per minute, increased magazine size, and a standard 5.56 assault rifle doing 25 to 18 damage. So since it's so similar, let's look at the direct damage comparison between the AR160 and its closest relative, the Scar H. The Scar H does better damage at every range except between very specific ranges on hardcore. So why would you want to use the AR160 over the Scar H, magazine size notwithstanding? It comes down to the likelihood you're going to put a bullet on a moving target. At 31 rounds, you have a lot more leniency to miss a few rounds and keep on killing. Additionally, the biggest advantage the AR160 has over the Scar H is the bullet velocity. You're much more likely to hit a moving target with the bullet velocity of the AR160 versus the Scar H. The simple fact being that your bullet traveling faster will mean it's more likely to meet your target before your target is moved. Probably the most difficult thing to master about the AR160 are the two most detracting statistics, its extremely high vertical recoil and its very high bullet spread. Let's look at the recoil pattern for the AR160. It has a 0.5 upwards recoil and a 0.2 left and a 0.2 right. This means that it's pretty much going to pull straight up as you lay on the trigger. Now this is a very simple recoil to counter as you just pull down on your mouse while firing. However, the second not so great part of this gun starts to become obvious as the trigger continues to be held down, that very high bullet spread. Ultimately, you have to master countering the recoil downward and burst firing the weapon to get the maximum accuracy and precision from your shots. Depending on how you're faring with this will influence your attachments, which I'll get to later in this video. So the best way to use the AR160 is to play mid-range and try not to be the one charging in. This was a bit of a switch in gameplay style for me. I had started playing this weapon at the start of Naval Strike only to put it down later, as it was not a very good match for my preferred playstyle. I usually like to really get into the thick of the enemy, but this weapon requires a bit of a different approach. So back off and let your enemies either come to you or put yourself in a good position to get them into your sweet spots. I had the most success when I could find positions at mid-range and had the opportunity to stop moving and burst my shots against my opponents. I was actually really surprised how quickly and accurately I could take down opponents when I took this cautious approach. Even in close quarters, I ended up winning some engagements because I focused on the accuracy of my weapon and went for those headshots. But for the most part, you do not want to be caught in close quarters with the AR160. Unless, of course, you're the enemy. So after reviewing what many of the top players are using, I found several common attachments for this weapon. Most players tended to focus on one of the main detractions of the weapon. Some looked for ways to reduce that first shot recoil, and others looked at to reduce the bullet spread, and still others on the ADS accuracy. What worked best for me was the following combination. For the sight, I went with the red dot sight and eventually unlocked the Coyote. I prefer the openness of the Coyote, but you may prefer something else. Run with what you like, but I think the weapon works best with the RDS. Reason being is that the high vertical recoil becomes difficult to control with more magnification. For secondary, I would either run with a laser, a 2X, or nothing. It's personal preference here, and you have to ask yourself whether you want a slightly better long-range weapon or a slightly better close-range one. For the barrel attachment, I chose the flash hider. So this was the attachment that seemed to have the most variation in choices among the top players. I saw a lot of folks get the heavy barrel or the muzzle brake. However, I still chose the flash hider over these options. Here's why. I feel the muzzle brake is a waste and degrades the performance of the weapon. You really should only be using it if you're having a hard time controlling the recoil, or if you're using this weapon in a long-range capacity, in which case I think there are better weapons out there. As for the heavy barrel, I feel like while it gives better ADS accuracy, I think that comes at the cost of some of the further mid-range kills, and particularly a heavy cost in the further out the target gets. I play with the weapon and see which of these combos feels better for you. You might end up liking the muzzle brake more than the flash hider. Personally, I think the aiming performance of the gun is amazing enough not to warrant any changes, and picking up the flash hider is a nice perk. Again, should you use this weapon? Yes or no? A definite yes, especially if you're a mid-range player. If you like weapons like the AK-5C, the M416, the L85, and the M16, then this weapon is for you. While there are some detractions to the weapon, they are easily countered, and when you treat it right, the gun is a very accurate mid-range player. I had a lot of fun playing with it these last 2 days and getting my last unlocks and my mastery dog tag. So give the AR160 a try and let me know how you did in the comments below. Please like this video if you found it helpful or insightful, and if you'd like to see more Battlefield 4 videos, please subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you next time, YouTube.